Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. We're going to talk about why self care is important. We're also going to dive into that fine line between self care and taking care of your responsibilities, and also a few ways to practice self care. We like to think we know what we're talking about. We're not dummies. Across from me, I have Jun.
Hey, and we also have Crystal.
Hey guys, and that our lovely host over there is Steven.
Welcome in, everyone. And we are now on the line. So we're going to dive straight into it. First order of business, we're going to talk about why self-care is important to you. What do you guys think?
So, self care is very important. One thing that I usually try to think of when talking about self care is this quote. I'm not sure what branch of the military it's from. I think it might be the Navy, because Nick Merckx does talk about it a bit. And it's the quote of take care of yourself, then take care of others. Because the bottom line is that you can't help others until you take care of yourself. So that quote is one of those things that I always try to remember, because you always want to help other people. But if you're not in a place, whether it be as far as just your life or just even at the moment, if you're like juggling some things and you got to take care of what you got to take care of first before then you can extend your hand and help somebody else.
That's right. It's kind of like a few years back, you had told me, Jen, when I had told you a story. I tried to jump in to save someone who was drowning. But then I realized as soon as I touched the water that I myself do not know how to swim. So, bottom line is learn how to swim, and then you could save someone who's drowning.
Yeah,
There's
take
so
care of
many
yourself,
quotes.
take care of others afterwards.
Literally, the quote that I always say that's literally the same idea is you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first so to allow yourself to overflow into someone else's cup to help them out. But you can't pour from an empty cup. It's literally the same idea. You can't help anyone else, can't love anyone else without loving yourself first and helping yourself first.
And it's also not to say that like don't help others. It's the thing that you have to take care of yourself first before you can help others. So I mean, obviously, everyone, people would you would like to think that everyone wants to help other people. You might even know it yourself, where you try to take care of somebody else before you take care of yourself. And like even on an airplane, they have the thing where it's like put your oxygen mask on first and then save the child. Because
Yeah,
if you
that's a
can't
good
breathe,
example.
then you're not going to save that kid. So it's just one of those things, make sure you can help others, but just make sure you take care of what you need to take care of first.
One point that I wanted to bring up that is related to like helping others is the idea or like the experience of growing up in an Asian household. If you it could be other households too, but primarily I know in an Asian household you are raised to always help others. Like your parents, there was a TikTok about this. I always bring up TikToks, but man, there's some good relatable ones. But basically, you are raised by parents who say they're first generation. Most of us are first generation, and your parents literally came here, immigrated here from a different country. And you see them, and they worked so hard to give you the life that you had, and they are literally doing everything within their power to help you. So you feel like you need to reciprocate that, and that your parents are first, your family is first. There's like tons of households where family is always the forefront, but the double-edged sword is that you grow up thinking that you need to help everyone else before helping yourself. You need to do this for someone else before even thinking about what you need as a person. And the sad part is that you pretty much grow up like not even learning how to love yourself, not even learning how to practice self-care because you're so focused on helping your family and helping your parents, which is not a bad thing, but eventually you're going to burn out because you have an empty cup. Just remember that because you grew up in a household like that doesn't mean it's too late to like change the way you view yourself, change the way you do things in life.
Definitely easy to not even realize that, everyone's priorities ahead of your own. Even if they don't even realize it, you just seem to want to help others before realizing that you need help yourself. Growing in a household where your parents, I feel like my parents kind of did this, putting the importance on making sure I'm taking care of my mom. or making sure I'm taking care of him or my grandparents or my sibling, my sister. It's meant, that point is like meant to be prioritized to make sure that our own family is good. But there wasn't so much of that kind of acceptance towards my own passions or interests or hobbies. My interests were put on the back burner when it comes to, my family's interests, my parents' interests, which, for the most part, it makes sense because I'm sure they know more than I did. Definitely highlighted the importance of taking care of others before taking care of myself. Maybe even if they didn't outright say it that way. I think just traditionally, that's how Asian households were kind of constructed. Take care of your family because they are the ones who raise you. And it's easy to forget about your own needs or wants.
Maybe to branch out even beyond the Asian household is people like innately being self-centered is how people go through life in a sense, like that you know how to take care of yourself because you are yourself. And so much of what is being taught is how to take care of others. The priority is always being taught to look outwards to help others, and it's never really taught to look internally. Are you okay? So that's one of those things that I think has an effect because you would think that everyone knows how to take care of themselves, but unfortunately, because everyone thinks you know how to do it, you never got taught that.
We're not like, I'm not saying that like taking care of others and being a part of like a team is not important, because I honestly value a collective culture over an individualistic culture. I mean, I think people should look out for themselves, but in the end of the day, you need to remember that it's okay to take care of yourself and have that like individual outlook on life. But to me, a collective view on life is very important. So I do believe in helping others. I think being a selfless person and doing selfless acts is key to a happy life. And you can't accomplish goals on like, you can accomplish goals on your own, but bigger picture things, a collective view on the world, I think is more important. But you can't be a part of a functioning collective group when you can't function individually.
I'm going to take it a step further and I'm going to say it's important to realize that you do need to take care of yourself. Not only is it okay, but it's definitely important to do it. Self care is important to me because it helps to create a divide between stress, conflict, and my power or my self control.
What do you mean?
Taking care of myself or practicing self care helps bring my mind back to equilibrium. It helps me recognize that I do have power over problems or conflicts that are taking over my life. At that point, you need to take care of yourself because then it puts the ball back in your court. It may seem like at times you're losing grasp on a situation. Some problems just get the better of you. You might even consider folding. But taking care of myself from time to time puts that barrier between, the stress that's being put on my life and the power, the control that I have.
So basically, you're saying like you have to practice self care so that you can have the strength to overcome the stress and the issues you have in life. Because if you don't have the strength or the mental capability to process the things you're going through, you can't properly respond and properly solve anything, because you yourself don't even have the strength and the capability to do that, because you're not taking care of yourself and you don't have that power.
It's kind of
right?
like a battery, right? So the more you self-care, the higher your charge goes up. And if you don't
Yep.
self-care, you're basically draining your battery down. And if you try to exert when your battery's at 10%, it's not going to be the same level of excellence as something if you had a full charged battery. And I think that's
Yeah.
super important to think about, especially with self-care, because that's what it is. It's you charge yourself back up to 100.
Exactly.
My next point is actually that breaks are the key to productivity. And that has a very similar thing with the battery charge. Is if you keep draining yourself down, you can't expect to be productive. So when you practice self-care, you're charging your battery back up. And if you could just step away from something like homework or a problem or a stressor, then you could come back at it. You're revved up. You sometimes, even when you don't think you're thinking about solutions, you'll automatically open your mind if you step away from the situation. So breaks are definitely a key to, I think, productivity in the long run, especially when you practice self-care.
You don't want to run out that battery either. Like, you can always charge yourself up, but the more you exert yourself, you can hit 0%. And you know what happens when you hit 0%? Like, if your phone dies, how long it takes to just turn back on. Like, going from 0 to like 10% takes forever. When if you're just at 20%, you can just start charging back up. Like, you don't want to burn yourself out, because burning yourself out is so much harder to recover from. So you need to recognize when you're hitting that breaking point, don't push yourself farther. You need to take a step back and start recharging yourself right then and there, because otherwise you might not come back.
Yeah, burnout is definitely real. It's definitely real, and that's why self-care is so important. Because if you just keep coming at something and you keep coming at something, and there's only so far you can go before you have nothing left to give.
So we're practicing self-care. Where do our responsibilities lie in these self-care practices?
Yeah, I guess like the idea is like what's the line between caring for yourself and just becoming self-centered and not being negligent to the world around you?
So I feel like there's a very distinct line between taking care of yourself and then becoming negligent of your responsibilities. First red flag is that you find yourself in a situation where you're digging yourself in a deeper hole. This is happening because you're taking care of myself. So let's say I am stressed over my homework and I have this deadline at the end of the week, but I'm just going to practice self care for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And here we are at the end of the week, and my homework has not been noticed. There's no attention to any of my responsibilities. I am telling myself that, it's okay if I put these responsibilities for some other time because I'm taking care of myself. I think that's one red flag is if there is like a due date or a timestamp for something that you're stressed about, keep that in mind.
That's definitely like a good barometer, especially when it's something that has a due date. There's a tangible time thing for something to get done, that you can't just practice self-care in a way where you end up not hitting that deadline, where things just don't get done. So that's definitely one of the clearest ways to, that you can straddle that line and see it. As long as your homework gets done, you can do whatever self-care you want. But if your homework doesn't get done, then guess what? You're just you're just being lazy.
Pretty much, you just have to think about your end goals. Like, this whole time, even in the beginning part of this, we were talking pretty much you have to help others. There's other things that you need to do outside of yourself, but you have to just focus on yourself first. But you can't just always focus on yourself. You have to remember that you're focusing on yourself to then provide some value outside of yourself. The reason why you're taking care of yourself is to accomplish those goals.
Just to go back and bring back this battery analogy, because it hit a home run.
Yeah, I did.
When you charge a battery, it's so that you can use it. You don't charge a battery just so it sits around, you have a full battery. You charge the battery so that you can use it. So self-care is a way to charge your battery, so then you can now become productive. You can now take on your responsibilities and do it. That's what makes that analogy so good. Because
yeah, it's so good.
because
The battery coming back.
You're using your battery for your responsibilities and for others. But self-care is the ignition, it's the catalyst for charging that battery so that you can become more productive.
Basically, you're finding the line between laziness and self-care. Laziness, you can define laziness as you are relaxing, but with the fact that you know that you should be doing something else, but you're choosing not to do them. Self-care, though, is you are trying to relax and take care of yourself so that you can then be productive. Like, you're not putting things aside to not do them when you know you should be. You're just relaxing knowing that you will do them and that you will be productive once you're relaxed.
There's the side of laziness and there's the side of self-care. And for me, that's almost a blurred line because I get super lazy with things, but I'll think about it like, because like I said breaks are the key to productivity. So sometimes I just go overboard. I'm like, I need this break. I need this break. I can't be productive unless I need this, if I take this break. But at a side, sometimes it just becomes laziness. But I think it's definitely smart to try to recognize when you're just putting it off to put it off versus you're putting off because you literally have no energy.
Just be cognizant. You don't want to be creating this cascading effect. I'm not going to do my homework because I'm stressed out, but then I'm going to go outside and spend $1,000 when I should be also paying rent at the end of the month. You could do these things to take care of yourself, but don't also create another problem.
I definitely like the idea where it's like it's self-care if you don't end up creating another problem by taking self-care. So that's definitely another great barometer for self-care because laziness you'll probably create another problem. Self-care, hopefully you don't.
If you listen to a few podcasts before, within reason is honestly the key. You gotta know where the limit is. You can have a lazy day. That's fine. You could be lazy for a day, 2 days, the weekend. But are you gonna be lazy for a week, a month, a couple months? You gotta know when it's really not okay.
You get that crazy cascade.
If your roommate or your mom is starting to look at you like, did this person shower today? That's when probably you should start doing stuff. Start being productive.
It's self-care, all right?
No, self-care is not showering. I don't think so.
Do you think other people can define self-care for you? Do you think if you do something and you say self-care, but then somebody else is like, no, that's not self-care, do you think other people can draw the line for you?
To some extent.
What's that extent?
I think you can. I think that you gotta draw that line yourself. Honestly, you know yourself the best. They can give you ideas on how to take care of yourself, and they can give you ideas on how to practice self-care, but only you know exactly what you need. You know exactly what your mind needs, what's your body need. When you feel that you are satisfied in your self-care routine, that is catered to you. Everybody's so different. Everybody has different preferences. Everybody has different energy levels and different endurance. So you pretty much write the book on your own self-care. But yeah, I think to some extent people can tell you, give you ideas on how to do those things.
I think you're right where you said that you have to write it yourself. But I do think the external factor of people can help you identify when it's becoming laziness. I'm going to bring back that idea of when it creates more problems. And when people can start noticing problems, and you're like, oh, but I know myself. Obviously, sometimes people need a little help trying to figure out what actually is creating problems and what's not.
No, yeah, other people can definitely help to identify when laziness becomes irresponsible. At the same time, they can also kind of just point me in a direction of what I can do to take care of myself. Someone can say, hey, why don't you take a break for a little bit? I heard that helps you become more productive later on. I know you're technically, doing your own thing to charge your own battery, but it's getting a little out of hand and maybe you should go back to your responsibilities. So it works both ways.
Yeah. And to put you guys on the spot here, how often do you guys reach out to somebody and tell them they need to take care of themselves? Do you often see people? I mean, now it's a little different because we're not in a real space together. But before, when you saw, especially in like college or something like that, when you see people who like drive themselves through the wall, do you ever take that initiative and be like, hey, you need to take it easy?
Almost every day.
Yeah, same. Like, I mean, I feel like I was gonna say no, but now if I like reflect on it, when people are at work and I notice that they're like starting to get stressed, they look like they sweating, they're starting to yell to themselves, like at their desk, like they're starting to yell, and you could tell that they're like can't handle what's going on at work.
At a breaking point?
Yeah. Then I go over there and I'm like, hey, you should probably take a break. Let's go get some coffee or, let them get their mind off it, because you can't really solve any problems if you're just overloaded with stress.
I more so walk that fine line. I use Crystal's point that she mentioned earlier, where it's almost like you traditionally just take care of other people. And so I tell other people to take care of themselves every single day, even if that means that some more of the workload would fall into my lap. Being able to just say to other people that they should be taking care of themselves, I feel like is something that needs to be heard by everyone. And it's something that a lot of people don't even think about. They don't realize that they need to take a break. So I like to tell a lot of people, they shouldn't be working as hard. I know it is important, but not a priority.
Sometimes people need to hear someone reaffirm, like, hey, by the way, you should take a break. Because if you're like, oh, I don't want to take a break because I'm just gonna be lazy, sometimes you just need to give that person just that reassurance. Hey, by the way, just take a break. You're not being lazy. Just take care of yourself for a sec.
Tell them it's okay to not be okay right now. Do you guys think that people could be offended by you telling them to take a break?
I don't know if anyone will feel directly offended. I think someone can be like, "Oh no, I need to get this done because the deadline is now." Like, you'll get that times where you tell someone to relax a little bit or take it easy, and they'll kind of wave you off because like they're so into what they have to do that they kind of tune out the world in a sense, and they even forget about themselves and take care of themselves. It just goes along with what I said. Sometimes you just gotta, reaffirm them again. Even if they wave you off, it's just let them hear. Hey, by the way, you should, take a break.
I think it's fine too. It's just like in the way you approach them, more like, hey, is everything okay? I want to help you. Like, I think maybe you should take a break, instead of saying like, hey, you need to calm down. Because when people tell you like, you need to calm down, it's like, no, I don't need to calm down. You need to calm down.
I'm sick and tired of people trying to calm me down.
Exactly.
I think also it's like a way to smooth that transition is to restate what they have to do. If just be like, hey, you got a lot going on. You got to do this. You got to do this. Do this. Make sure you take the time. I know your responsibilities are through the roof. It's one of those things where you kind of get at the same level of them. You can't just be like, hey, take a break. You'd be like, oh, dude, you have to do so much today. It's freaking nuts. Make sure you take care of yourself. One of those things. So then they recognize that that they got a lot of things going on. It might be hard to take a break, but you just throw it in there. Just say, hey, do a thing, but let them understand that you know what they're going through.
It's definitely in the verbiage and how you communicate it to them. You have to at least let them know that you understand what is going on. You can't just, walk up to your coworker and be like, you know what? You've been working hard. Just take a break. Because some people might perceive that as a backhanded insult. You trying to be smart with me right now? Because I have been working hard. So don't tell me that I've been working hard. I have been working hard.
Trying to be nice.
Yeah. So, some people can perceive messages, however they get perceived. So I think by being able to say it correctly and communicate the messages the right way, where it's like, I understand that you have a lot on your plate. It seems as if you've been putting a lot of effort into your work lately. Maybe it's time to take a break. That might help a little bit.
Know the situation. Because you have to tell someone to take a break, just know that they're running on the edge. They're at the lowest point of their battery. So you got to approach it in a way that could comfort them and not become another problem, another stressor.
Yeah, and on the flip side, like if you're the one receiving that information, you just got to assume positive intent. You got to assume that people are out there to help you and they're not, there to judge you. People are there to help you out, and you got to assume that their intentions are good when they say things like that.
So those are some ways to recognize when to say, hey, I think you need to take a break, take care of yourself for a little bit. We're now going to move into the different ways that you can practice self-care. But before we dive into that, we're going to implement this little game called Newscaster.
We're going to be playing Newscaster here. And this is where we take our topics and our points and we go ahead and format it into a little news broadcast for you. So without further ado, let's take it away, Newscasters. Good evening, everybody. I am Nestor Bongabong, and this is the On the Line Report. We are actually getting word of ways to practice self-care. Now, I spoke to Dr. Liechtenstein earlier today, and he did clarify that learning to say no is probably one of the best ways to practice self-care. He did state that saying no is one way to make sure you don't overload when it comes to responsibilities. He talks a lot about making sure that you take care of yourself, and if you keep saying yes and taking on more responsibilities, you'll end up crashing and burning. Now we have Crystal reporting on this ways to practice self-care, and I hear that she is in Michigan Avenue right now. So we're going to toss it to Crystal in Michigan Avenue. Crystal?
Hi, Nestor. Fantastic day here today in downtown Chicago. If you take a look behind me, you can see all of the hustle and bustle of the shopping out here on Michigan Avenue. Questions have come up whether or not you should be shopping for yourself so close to the Christmas season. But after surveying some folks out here, signs are all pointing to treating yourself anyway, because retail therapy is a wonderful way to practice self-care. And with that, back to you, Nestor.
Thank you. That is quite interesting news about retail therapy. So we're passing it to Stephen Gaudiano now at Chicago, Illinois, reporting live on more ways to practice self-care. Stephen?
Yes. Hi, I am here. Hi. So right now I am in Chicago. There's a lot of activity going on right now. And it seems as if the important point to practice self-care around me here is to turn off your brain. Remove yourself from all these stimulating activities, whether it be turning off your phone, turning off the TV, or even turning off a light. Something as simple as removing yourself from overstimulation can help for you to practice self-care. And back to you, Jun.
Thank you. Make sure you don't turn off your brain too much. And that was the On the Line report. Good night and good news.
So honestly, the best point I heard was retail therapy. Self-care? What is a better way to practice self-care than retail therapy? Sometimes when you're a little bit stressed, buying a little something for yourself, treating yourself, whether that's something like a little cupcake or a piece of clothing. You could buy anything for yourself and just feel a little bit better. You know, spending a little money on yourself, knowing that you are worth it, knowing that you are worth buying something for. You know, you're giving a gift to yourself. And to me, that is like one of the best ways to practice self-care, because I do that all the time whenever I'm stressed, like super stressed. I'm about to be burned out. I think, okay, what would make me happy right now? I deserve a little treat.
No, guys, her verbiage. Spend a little bit of money on yourself. Little bit of money.
Within reason.
Remember, don't dig yourself a new hole when you're practicing self-care. You can go out there and spend a little bit of money, but don't spend the money that you would have used to pay your bills.
And we're speaking from personal anecdotes here.
Trust me, I've been there.
Crystal, have you watched Parks and Rec?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, Parks and Rec, because Crystal doesn't watch it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that did watch Parks and Rec. Treat yourself. They do that. There's a segment with Aziz Ansari and Donna. I don't know the character names, but it's Aziz Ansari and Donna, and they have the treat yourself, and that's kind of what I think of when you say that. And you actually titled on our notes, you called it treat yourself, so that just reminded me of that. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that are probably going to hear that. But that's kind of along the lines, but maybe a lot as extravagant as those two, but like treat yourself.
Yeah. Treat yourself. I like that. I need to watch Parks and Rec, guys. I know. I need to watch it. I know it's great. I will. I swear. I really like the point that you had too about learning to say no. You can't just say yes to everybody. Even though you feel guilty, there's a point where you just need to stop being a people pleaser.
Oftentimes when you become a people pleaser and you just become a yes man and you just want to help everyone outside of you, but you say yes, they're like, oh, can you do this for me? And you're like, yeah, sure, yeah. Can you do this for me? Yeah, sure. That you end up taking on so much responsibilities that you forget to take care of yourself. So how do you practice self-care? Is learn to say no, because if you don't overload yourself with all different things from different people, you can actually look to yourself. And also, to be honest, if you say yes all the time, you're going to end up failing some of them and you're just going to be more stressed about that overall.
Yeah, like if you set the bar too high for yourself, you're not going to reach it every time, you know? If you set the bar for your family and your friends that you're always going to be that person that they can go to and you will always say yes, you can definitely burn yourself out that way because you can't set the bar that high and expect to be at that level every time. You say yes to things that are really important, but some things, if it's not high on that list of things you really feel like you need to do, be okay with saying no. It's okay to let people down. They're going to forgive you. People know that you have other priorities. People do not expect it from you. And if people do expect it from you, that's, on them. People shouldn't always depend on you for everything.
It's a little easier to be like, hey, no, I can't do that. I can't help you with that. Then just be like, oh, I can help you with that. And then not execute what you wanted to help them with. So
Yep.
in a way, you save yourself from, you might think you're disappointing somebody in the immediacy, but it's a smaller disappointment than to not execute what you said you're going to do. Which actually reminds me of when that newscaster, Stephen Gagliano, I forget who it was exactly, but he said, turn off your brain sometimes and kind of get away from all the stimulus of nowadays.
Yeah, it's important to turn off your brain. It's easy to just not recognize that you're being overstimulated. There's a lot of things going on in your brain. Then it's time to practice self care. The one way that I practice self care is turn off my phone for a couple hours before I go to bed. It helps me sleep if I just don't turn on the TV. I don't turn on my phone. I kind of put those on the other side of the room, and it helps for me to relax at night. By the time that I am ready to look at my phone and I see all these notifications and things that I need to address, I'm in the proper mind state to where I can address those things.
I agree with like time away from your phone. I know people like say like time away from your phone is good and like time away from social media because social media can be draining. You could literally be like scrolling through social media overstimulating yourself. But for me, turning my phone off or even just putting my phone in a different room or putting it on silent helps me practice self-care because when I'm by my phone, people are constantly texting me, calling me, asking me to do things, reminding me of all these responsibilities that I need to do. But sometimes time away from that is good because you are turning yourself off from the world and the external environment that you are in when literally everybody can reach you at any time, at any point of the day. But sometimes you need to be unreachable. You need to have that time to yourself where no one can talk to you besides yourself.
It's interesting because for me, it's tied to like because of my work, because I'm on set for work. I have no access to my phone. Like my phone's on silent, it's in my pocket. I never look at it. So like it's like the opposite effect. Like for me to relax, I can pull out my phone and I can scroll through it and do whatever I want to do, and that's relaxing to me in a sense. Because at work, it's the opposite. Like I cannot look at my phone. I can't look at anything. For me, like my phone is actually a way for me to relax.
No, I understand like the flip side of the coin where like being able to check your phone is putting your mind at ease in that sense.
Yeah, I just don't like being by my phone because I feel like people are always trying to reach me. And I know when people are trying to reach me, there's something that I need to do. So to me, that makes me stressed.
Popular.
And that's like
Yeah.
the thing where like people want you to help them and you should help others and you should be doing things for other people, but you need to turn it off at some point. It'll be back. It'll People will be there when you come back. People will be there when you're done practicing self-care. Problems will be there, but we need to step back. But I definitely agree that it's different for each person, like how we talked about earlier, that you write your own self-care book, because Steven said that he likes to be away from the TV. But for me, a mindless activity is watching TV.
Yeah. I need my phone, I need my TV to relax. I need technology. I need a screen in my face. And I guess that's why I have like blue light glasses so that I can like diminish its certain effects to my eyes. But like for me that's super relaxing.
Whatever it is for you guys, find a way where you're doing mindless activity, things that you're not pressuring your brain to, do all this work.
Yeah, my last point for practicing self-care is the idea of staying present, because there is thinking of what happened in the past, there's thinking about what's happening in the future, and then if you can ground yourself by thinking of what's happening now, like what you need to address now, is a form of self-care, I would think. Because if you look at the past, it's like sometimes people make problems, they make mistakes, or they go into situations and they do it, they stumble or fumble on something, and they kind of dwell on those things. They think about it so much that it encroaches on just their mind the whole time. Learn from your problems, but definitely don't dwell on them.
I'm definitely one who dwells on their experiences, good or bad.
I think it comes with being an anxious person. I'm always having anxiety about things that happen, but I agree. Can't change the past. You focus on what you can change.
There's also the idea of not thinking about the future too much. Sometimes you think about the future that you just get kind of blockaded of what you want the future to be, that you get overwhelmed and you can get beyond yourself. There's the past, there's the future, and there's the now. Focus on the now. Don't go too far in the past and don't go too far in the future.
Be here now, right now. So what you could do to practice self-care is to either find or follow a hobby of yours. I know there's a lot of things that pique my interest, and some things, I may be a little bit more passionate about. I very much so enjoy playing video games. I'm very behind in my video game leveling here. So I might go ahead and follow that, plug my Xbox back in and start gaming. Or I could just, practice self-care, go to the mall, buy a new PC, and then start gaming on a
Treat
computer.
yourself.
Retail
Treat
therapy.
yourself.
Free, yo. Sorry, yo.
Find a hobby or pick something back up. I once read books for some reason, but it was relaxing to some extent, up until the point where it became work to finish books. But also finish what you start.
I love reading. I agree. I think reading is a great way to be away from electronics if that's a goal. But it's not for everybody. But I do love reading and using that as a self-care, because who has the time to read books? And if that's something you want to do, that could definitely fit into your self-care routine.
You had me at video games, you lost me at books. But definitely, you got to find that hobby, that interest, because that's definitely a great way to practice self-care, because you identify what you like, identify something that relaxes you, you can go to it every single time you need to. So if you want to build model planes or build model ships or play video games or plant, garden, if that's your hobby, you can use it as an oasis to get away, because that's something that you enjoy.
And you guys should just always remember that self-care could literally fit into any category of mind, body, soul. So you could definitely practice everything we just mentioned, but remember that self-care is different for everybody. It's the same for some people, but self-care to you could be body, working out, taking a bath, taking care of your body. It could be your mind, reading books or educating yourself, that kind of stuff. It could be your soul, just doing what you like, what Steven said. So remember, there's so many different ways to take care of yourself. It's about making yourself feel good and recharging that battery.
Oh, the battery.
The battery. All the batteries. You only have one battery, so don't let that battery die, because buying a new battery is not a good.
So those are some ways to practice self-care. Hopefully we gave you some insight, or maybe pique your interest on some ways that you could practice self-care. We talked about why self-care was important. We even drew a little line between self-care and responsibilities. when can self-care be a little overboard, where it's digging into becoming irresponsible. And then we also talked about ways to practice self-care. Learn to say no, be present, turn off your brain, and treat yourself. So thank you for tuning into our self-care episode. Hope you picked some tips up. And we are now off the line.
And if you like content like this and you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe down below, you leave a comment, and you hit that notification button so you can see the next video when it pops up. And something we want to start incorporating now is you can reach out to us and let us know what topics you want us to talk about. Tell us now, we're running out of ideas. So thank you guys so much for everything. Make sure you follow us on all our socials. We are on the line. Thank you very much. And what button do I press?
Did I do that?